Hello, I'm John. I'm an alcoholic. I was praying shortly ago that he would put the words in my mouth. You know, I'm a little nervous, but I don't have a speech prepared. One thing that's helped me more than anything is the fellowship of AA, and I fought that for quite a while. I was in intensive outpatient therapy, and I had a wonderful counselor, and she kept pushing me toward going to an AA meeting. And I thought, oh, I don't need that. That's just for a bunch of quitters. And I don't know what drove me to it, but one day I finally decided I was going to go. And I was angry, upset, and couldn't understand how all you people were so happy. It just bothered me. How can you be laughing and joking? I'm in such misery. But eventually I kept going back, and I finally realized that when I was honest with myself, I gave my will and willpower over to the God of my understanding, that made all the difference to me. I remember sitting in a meeting, and I finally felt that serenity, and it was like addictive. I wanted to feel that every day because, we all suffered through our own addictions. So the next speaker is Gary S. from Randolph, and I've had the privilege of going to meetings with him and listening to his story. I got a lot of respect for that man, and without further ado, Gary, would you come forward?
All right, thanks, John.
Thanks, buddy. Okay, I'm going to set this up quick. That's not supposed to happen. Sorry about that. Oh, yeah, little guy here. Yeah, short. Okay, this thing. My name is Gary Sheeper. I'm a very grateful recovering alcoholic. Through the mercy of our Lord, 12 steps/suggestions, I've managed to not drink for 15,574 days, or 43 years, 1 month, and 17 days.
Yeah.
A lot of people in this room and in a lot of rooms have taught me so much about life, about living sober. They touched me deeply, and I remember years ago when this whole thing started, I was this good Catholic boy from Crofton, and I had damn thing. But God blessed me with good parents, good Catholic Christian parents, and I had 7 younger sisters, and I was her hero. I was the oldest, and all the rest were the girls, and I had 2 brothers that were stillborn. And when I was a few days short of being 15, my mom was going to have the 10th baby in our family. And it was November 8th, 1963, and her and the baby died. And I never forgot that day, and Dad had his struggles trying to deal with the grief and raising 8 kids from 15 to 2. And it was hard, and I didn't realize exactly what he went through until my wife passed away in 2013, but we lived on a farm. I had to milk them goddamn cows. I hated milking cows, hated it. But got through high school, and Dad was just, he drank too, and he was still struggling with Mom, her passing. And again, I didn't realize that until my wife died, what he went through. But he and I drew apart. And I didn't like my dad, didn't like what he was doing, but he maintained keeping us kids together. And a lot of people wanted to split us up. But we stayed together. I remember I was taking a boat when I was 15 and a half years old, sitting with my little sisters, and we voted that nobody was going to split us up. And we didn't, and to this day, we are very, very close. But as it went on, one day I came home and I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I loaded up all my stuff and moved to Yankton, and from there, for a lot of years, it kind of up and downhill. And I got into the booze. And I had a lot of good times with the booze, and I was just a little shit like I am now. But I could be the life of the party when I was drinking. And it was fun for a long time. I didn't have a big capacity for it, and I was a beer-holic. But I remember for years, just sometimes I'd pass out for a couple hours and wake up and go at it again. And I had good jobs, and I remember being a big head cook at a big restaurant in Yankton, and a head cook at an Italian restaurant in Yankton, and then I went to North Dakota and was managing country kitchen restaurants in North Dakota and South Dakota. Meanwhile, still drinking. I drank in the service too. And it always seemed to get me in a little bit of trouble, just a little bit of trouble. And nothing major. I have no idea how I didn't get DUI, but I never did. Should have 100 times. But I kept losing these jobs because of my addiction. And I remember in '76, I was managing a country kitchen in Grafton, North Dakota, and I told the guy that owned it, stick it up his ass, and left and went on about a 6-week drunk, and the lady I was loving at the time gave me a bus ticket to Yankton, South Dakota, and said, see you around. I don't need this. And I went to Yankton, South Dakota, and lived in the back of a truck stop and was a fry cook at the Human Services Center in Yankton. And this was I thought, well, this is going to be great, because I'd left North Dakota owing $400 in bad checks and skipped the country. And they didn't like that. The guy especially that I wrote the checks to didn't like that. Of course, it was to a bar. But I just remember having my own home and car and everything like that, and then living in the back of a truck stop, being a fry cook in a Human Services Center. And but I was going to have a good time during the summer of '76 because it was the bicentennial, and I was going to party. Well, the North Dakota authorities had different ideas, and they picked me up at the Human Services Center, and I spent the summer of '76 in jail, waiting for the North Dakota authorities to come and get me. And they came and got me, but before that, that's when I found out about tough love. My dad had sobered up, and he had found his way in his grief. And he was a good dad to my little sisters. He was a good dad to me. Little did I know. And I knew that he would bail me out because he'd bailed me out of some situations before. And he came to the jail that day and he said, Darius, I'm going to leave you here. You need to face this on your own. I'm done. And little did I know that he was coached by the A guys in Yankton. And my uncle, I found this out later. But, and I just thought to myself, well, you son of a bitch. You're going to leave me go to prison for this. And then he sent reinforcements.
No.
My uncle came, and a one-armed man came from Yankton. And they scared me to death about their stories. And that one-armed guy said before he sobered up, his wife would pick him up off the railroad once in a while, and she drug him off the railroad tracks. Before a train got there, they would have cut him in half. And how he, on his last drunk, he took his check from the stockyards in Yankton, went downtown to cash it at the wallet. And he woke up 4 days later, on the back of a semi in California. He had no idea how he got there, none. And he had no money. And I couldn't wait for that son of a bitch to get out of there. It scared me to death. And all my cousins, Dad had informed them, don't bail him out, let him fight this on his own. So, and it wasn't getting any better. So I went back to North Dakota. The guy didn't want me to go to jail, he just wanted me to work it off, so I dug potatoes in the fall of '76. And lived in jail at night and dug potatoes. And dug potatoes to get myself out of jail and worked at a potato warehouse that whole winter. Following spring, that same fall, I met my wife, my first wife, Pam. And I knew this was, after I looked back, but I found her in a bar. She was underage, singing karaoke. And if you knew my wife, she loved to sing, and she was a very good singer. And we got married in '78, and life was good, party hardy, raise hell. But she grew up, and I didn't. And through the grace of our good Lord, I shouldn't say that. Both of our fathers died in the fall of '78, right after '79, excuse me. And they both died within a month of each other. So we moved back to Nebraska. And had a bunch of jobs there too, working with the mentally handicapped. My wife, and to her dying day, she still worked with the mentally handicapped. But my drinking just kept getting worse, and she was sick of it. And in between that time, how God came across, he showed me so many signs, and I just blew them off. But a little boy showed up. We adopted a little boy, and his name was Nathan. And I remember that year, I said, I can't do this. If I'm going to keep this little boy in my life, I said, I got to shape up, And March 9th, 1982, I got up in the morning and walked to the highway, and a man picked me up in a pickup. And as soon as I got in the pickup, I could smell booze. When a drunk smells booze, this guy's drunk. And I got in the pickup and sat in the seat, and I looked down to my left, and there was a book of Alcoholics Anonymous. We were 5 miles from town, and it seemed like it took 2 days to get to Bloomfield. I couldn't wait to get out of that pickup. It scared me to death. He told me about what booze had cost him. 2 farms, his family, his wife, his kids, his well-being, his everything. But he was still drunk. And I remember drinking with my buddy and having a couple of beers, and I threw it up. And at 2:30 that afternoon, I was in a place called BJ's in Bloomfield. And I walked out the back door, and I walked through the alleyways and walked up to the Catholic rectory where Father was, and Father Cross. And he was a good guy. He bailed me out of some situations and gave me some money, and stuff like that. And I taught 6th grade boys CCD. How I got to do that, I have no idea. I bullshit my way through that. But I went there, I thought I was going to con him out of some more money, and it just, I spilled it. I just told him everything in my life. Everything. And he looked me square in the eye and he says, "Do you have any balls?" When a Catholic priest asks you if you have any balls, it kind of gets your attention. So I ended up that night in Valley Hope. And that's where this journey started. This sober journey started. And I met some nurses out there, and they kind of took me under their wing. And I was 33 years old, same as Jesus Christ was when he died on the cross. I didn't think of that until years later. They gave me a lot of good tools. And they nurtured me and helped me find my way a little ways. And then I was out. And had to face this thing, a day at a time, just like we're all doing. Every one of us here. Whether it be Al-Anon or AA, it doesn't make any difference. And I came into these rooms. And I remember going into those rooms in O'Neill. And Fox, remember the name of Fox? And Neil B. Ryan were there. And they accepted me right off the bat. I mean, they were glad I was there. For the first time in years, somebody was glad that I was at a meeting. Glad that I was there. And they accepted me, and they took me into their arms and listened to my stuff. And after I got out and came home to listen to you folks, to come to these meetings, and you shared your experience, your strength, and your hope with me, and helped me slowly but surely to get better. I had choices. So now, I gave you all, if you haven't got one, hopefully you can find one, a clear marble, or clear piece, and a dark piece, black piece. When we came into this program, we didn't have any choices. Usually, for most of the morning and part of the day, it was going to be a shitty day. And we didn't have any choices. We had to live it. When we came into this program, when we come each day in the morning, and it starts out crappy. It just doesn't start out the best. We have a chance to change. We have an opportunity. We have a choice to change. And that black marble's in your right-hand pocket. You have a choice right then and there. I need to change this. I need to make my day better. Switch the pockets. Put that clear marble in your right pocket. It may go bad anytime during that day, but you still have choices. We have choices. You chose to be here today. Thank God you're here. Thank God you're here for me. I'm glad I'm here for you. I'm no better than anybody here. I'm just Gary, and I'm just an alcoholic. And if anybody got up this morning before 6:36, they were sober longer than I am. I knew you would be, Donna. I've had some sadness in my life. Nathan, my oldest, who is 44 now, just turned a year when I was in treatment. Now he's 44, and he's the dad of my 3 beautiful granddaughters. And they're my buddies, and they're one of the huge joy in my life. I had a good wife in Pam for 36 years, and she passed away in 2013 from complications from diabetes. After we sobered up in 1984, God blessed us with a son named Nick. And we had him for 16 years, 3 months, and 3 days. And May 17th of 2000, he was killed in a car wreck. 3 of my 7 sisters have passed. But they were all proud of their brother. Nick was proud of his dad. And I remember the end of March in 2000, Nick came to when I got my chip, and he talked about how proud he was of his dad. He's shown me signs that he's okay. My wife has shown me signs that they're with their Lord and Savior. I go to a lot of meetings, or some meetings, and there's a lot of angry people at these meetings, but they're there. And some of them don't believe in, they struggle with higher power, struggle with God as their higher power. I choose him to call God, and he's been good to me, and he's my father. I remember a priest came to one of our meetings one day. His name was Father Spenner. I don't know if he's still alive or not, but he talked and he broke down the Our Father. And he said, think of that prayer, Our Father. He's our dad. And if anybody's got any kind of a dad at all, your dad's there for you. God is there for us. All we have to do is reach for him. He doesn't move. We do. Who art in heaven? Where's heaven? And I look at that. And I think of you. I'm not sure it's any place I'd want to be rather than here with you. And it's pretty close to heaven. It's goodness. And you are such good people. But booze kicks your ass. Or drugs kicks your ass. God doesn't make junk. He made you. We fucked it up. All by ourselves. We got to fix it. You taught me to listen in this room, in these rooms. You taught me to listen. You taught me not to judge. You taught me how to care. You taught me how to show up and shut up. You taught me how to forgive. It's so nice to hit the pillow at night and not have a resentment. And if I do, if I'm thinking about something, as crazy as it sounds, I say, Lord, take this out and put it on the bench in the garage, and I'll pick it up in the morning. That reminds me of a story. A man was an old ex-drunk, and he was a carpenter. And he went to this man's house to fix it up, help him. And he had his old pickup, and he threw all his tools in the back of his pickup. And at the end of the day, he would load up his pickup with his stuff, and he would go home. One day, a pickup wouldn't start. So the man that he was working for said, I'll give you a ride home. He did. And he got to the guy's house, and the guy had a nice looking place, and he got out and took some of his tools out and laid them down, and he walked through the gate, and he walked over by a tree, a big green evergreen tree right in the middle of the lawn. And he put his hand on the tree. And he stood there for a little bit and bowed his head. And he came back and got the rest of his tools, and that guy was just bewildered. Why did you stop at that tree? And he says, each day I come home and I take all the troubles that I had during that day and I leave them by that tree. And when I leave, or when I go in the house, I can be a dad. I can be a husband. I don't have to worry about what I did that day to screw up my evening with my family. And he says, the next morning, when I get up, I go back to that tree and took everything that I left there at the house, there, and I pick up what I had the next morning, or had from the following day. And he says, it's surprising how much stuff is usually gone the next morning. So, let it go. Let go, let God. You know, we hear all these sayings, all of them. Sometimes they just drove me freaking nuts. You know, another one day at a time. Well, no shit. You know? I remember one time at a meeting in O'Neill, and they said, this one gal said, I'm so-and-so, and I'm emotional. And my buddy from Iowa said, well, who in the F is it? Another guy didn't believe in God. And he says, I just don't believe in him. He says, you know what? That tree out there in the middle of the campus is my God. That night we had a storm, and honestly, God, I swear it's the truth. That night we had a storm, lightning storm, and lightning struck that tree, and there was nothing left of it. He found God. You know, he found God. You know, and forgive yourself. If you forgive yourselves. I remember, too, somebody saying to me, you know, you're forgiving everybody else. Are you, you know, do you forgive yourself? And I don't know. And he says, do you believe God forgives you? And I said, yes. Well, are you better than God? God forgave you. Forgive yourself. And that was a cold slap in the face. I was no better than God. I'm no better than any of you. I go to a meeting at 6:45 on Monday mornings here at 303. I see a few of those faces here today. I've been going there for a year. And a lot of them don't have as much sobriety as I've got, you know, but to watch you grow, to watch them grow, to watch, and I see faces in here, to watch you grow over the years. What an awesome miracle. And you did it yourself. You and your God. You and the steps. You and the suggestions. And it gives us we're able to work our way to the promises. And I didn't know anything really about the promises until maybe 10 or 12 years ago. And I mean, I'd heard of them, but and I looked at them, and I was living them. And I didn't realize it. I was living the promises. Yeah, I've had a lot of sadness in my life. But the good Lord just grabbed a hold of me and took me for the ride, you know, and I don't have to be bitter about it. You know, in 2019, I I went to some grief share stuff and learned how to grieve my passing of my son and my wife. And I had a dear friendship with someone, and it kind of went sour. And I went into this sad place, trying to fix it. And it wasn't going to happen, I couldn't fix it. But this dear friend suggested maybe I get some help. Because I tried talking about it in my 12-step meetings, and it didn't work. And sometimes you can't do it at a 12-step meeting, but you got to have balls enough or tits enough to go find someplace that will help you. And it's out there. You just got to go look for it. And I did. And I found out that I had been struggling with depression since the 60s. I admitted it. And I remember the last day of 2019, New Year's Eve day. And I said, God, please make 2020 better than 2019. 2019 was the worst year of my life, period. I've been sober a long time, but it was just tough. I never came close to drinking, but I thought about it one day. And I was in the Catholic Church in Osmond, and this voice said, I will send you someone. And I looked around and I thought, who said that? I don't know. That night, I got a phone call. And this lady was sad, terribly sad. And I learned a lot in Grief Share about taking care of myself and my grief. And she was miserable. Her husband had died a few years before that on Christmas Eve. And I said to her, I'm going to church in the morning. Why don't I meet you at Hilltop after breakfast and we'll have breakfast? And she said her story, and I felt bad for her. And she said, I don't know if I can or not. She says, but I'll keep in touch. She called me the following week, and the same thing. I went to Mass and I took her out for lunch. She's sitting over there to my left, and on July 1st, 2022, she married me. And she's my friend. And she loves me through my bullshit. And she kind of knows when I need to go to a meeting. And she nudges me. And for you, those folks that are new, and us old timers, we shouldn't preach at you, but we can nudge you. You know. I got to tell this story. This man before the meeting came up to our table and says, I've been trying to think what you're doing with these rocks. And he says, I figured it out. He says, you're going to take this and tell everybody tomorrow that you gave everybody at these tables those little stones and you got them all stoned. That was a good one. I just don't have a whole lot else, you people are so dear to me, all of you, and life is it's short. In 1967, I thought those people that were graduated from high school 60 years, God damn, they're old. I've been sober 58. I've been out of school 58 years. I don't know what the hell I was thinking about. But I'm happy. And you gave it to me. These rooms gave it to me. I accepted it. Acceptance. The ability to do nothing when there's nothing you can do. I learned that from a man that was at this meeting years ago from California. Acceptance, the ability to do nothing when there's nothing you can do. We're here. We're sober. We got a good and loving God if we let him in. One day at a time, that song by, that song just gets to me every time. One day at a time. Sometimes, and you all know it, you got to break it down to a half a day, 15 minutes. And when everybody's bitch or a son of a bitch, and it happens, and you're pointing at them, there's 3 fingers and a thumb pointing right back at you. And most of the time, when that person is a bitch or a son of a bitch, it's me. It's my attitude. When my attitude sucks, everything sucks. I get to be a grandpa out of this deal. And they are my little buddies, 2 redheads and a blonde. And many a grandchild has been spoiled because you can't spank grandpa. Very true. But they love me, and they wholeheartedly, and I get to be a grandpa to them, and I get to be a dad to my son, Nate. Like I said, he's 44 when he turned 1 when I was in treatment. I'll never forget that. He had him a coaster wagon. He still has it. And now as of February 7th, he was sober 3 years. He found his way. And to watch him be a dad, and to watch him grow in his faith, it takes me back to where I was. My dear sweet wife, Pam, I expected to come home and be forgiven, and everything was good. No, it took me 5 years to screw that whole thing up, and it took me another 5 years before she could trust me. But even to her dying day, I could still push her buttons. All of us here who are spouses, we know how to push the buttons, don't we? Every one of us, man, woman, or child, we can push the buttons. So can our kids. So I'm just done. And I love you folks, and I don't know if any of you read this, as Bill sees it, but the 645 bunch in Norfolk, they kick my ass with this every Monday morning. And they make me responsible. So. And I'm going to go over my table and sit down, but you people are my rocks. And I should have passed these out earlier, but come over to the table and get one of them. Each one of you take a rock with you. You are my rocks. And I thank you for listening to me, and just thank you. I don't know what else to say. Thank you.